As the custodian of the country's gateway, we continuously seek to provide a seamless and joyful experience for you. The Butterfly Effect, a set of facilities and services specially catered to guests with hidden disabilities. The Butterfly Effect aims to ensure our hidden disability guests have a seamless and pleasant journey at our airport. We have designated areas for our hidden disability guests, and you will be specially assisted by our trained airport staff. The process is fairly easy and hassle-free. Should you need to use the Butterfly Effect, you can pre-register through Malaysia Airport's official website 3 days prior to your flight. The registration will allow the airport community to prepare for your upcoming travel, ensuring a seamless journey. Upon arrival at the airport, do look out for the Butterfly Effect logo. It is located between doors 2 and 3 at departure level KLIA 1 and at door 2, departure level KLIA 2. You may then proceed to the Customer Information Counter at level 5, Departure Hall KLIA 1 and level 3, Departure Hall KLIA 2. For verification purposes, please present an OKU card or a letter issued by a doctor stating the hidden disability condition. You will be given a butterfly kit containing a lanyard, brochure and leaflet on locations of the calm room and sensory walls. Is to have the lanyard on at all times for proper assistance from our airport staff. Our friendly airport care ambassadors will happily guide and escort you from the check-in counter all the way to the boarding gate. As a Butterfly Effect guest, you may utilize the calm room located at level 5 KLIA 1 before proceeding to the boarding gate. Our calm room is designed specifically to help individuals with hidden disabilities to regulate their emotions and calm their anxieties in the busy and loud airport environment. The interactive touch panels of our sensory walls help hidden disability guests to engage through their touch and sight, encouraging interactive explorations. Our Butterfly Effect guests will have special access at all checkpoints within the terminal. If your flight is at the satellite building, you may take the train or ride the bus and enjoy the scenery. At the boarding gate, you will go through the final round of security checks. Our aviation security personnel will give more time and flexibility to accommodate to your needs. As caring hosts, the aim of the Butterfly Effect initiative is to provide an inclusive and seamless airport experience for all our guests. Hosted by Malaysia Airports. During these sessions, we will be sharing with our audience an often overlooked disability, the hidden disabilities. My Airport's Butterfly Talk is part of the Butterfly Effect, an initiative introduced by Malaysia Airports for our hidden disability guests, such as autism, who are travelling through KLIA and KLIA 2 to provide care and support for these special guests. Airports are not always easy places to navigate, especially so for hidden disability passengers. Through the Butterfly Effect initiative, Malaysia Airports has incorporated autism-friendly facilities and services as a step forward in creating a joyful experience for our hidden disability guests, ensuring inclusivity. This program will take around 45 minutes of your time, and we will have a question and answer session towards the end of the program. So if you have any questions related to today's topic, you may leave them in the comments section below. Now, traveling generally can be a stressful and challenging experience for anyone, especially those with hidden disabilities. Even I myself get anxious sometimes when preparing for an upcoming travel and going through numerous checkpoints from the entry of an airport all the way to the plane. That is why we are here today with our panelists, Ms. Charlene Mary Samuel, who is the director of the Autism Behavioral Center, or better known as ABC, to tell you parents or guardians out there on how you can prepare your child for their plane journey and transform this challenging experience into a pleasant and seamless one. Before we start discussing today's topic, let me share some information about our panelists for this episode. Ms. Charlene is trained in applied behavioral analysis therapy and has been working with children in the spectrum for 14 years. She has applied her expertise in working and helping family of all ages. She also actively trains parents and therapists around the country, as well as provides school shadow aid services in local and international schools for special needs children and children in the autism spectrum. Another great piece of information I would like to share with you today is that Malaysia Airports has actually worked together with ABC in realizing the Butterfly Effect initiative, where ABC has provided training to our airport community in KLIA and KLIA 2, including government agencies such as the Immigration Department, the Royal Malaysian Customs Department, airlines, ground handlers, retailers, as well as our very own airport staff. We thank you for your kind support and cooperation, Ms. Charlene. Now, the topics
Thank you,
covered
Arena.
during these sessions were identifying hidden disabilities such as autism, dyslexia, sensory processing disorder, and ADHD, and how to support these individuals with needs. This is to ensure that our airport community is ready to assist our special guests. Without further ado, welcome to my airport's Butterfly Talk, and thank you for being here with us today, Ms. Charlene.
Thank you so much, Ariana. Thank you for the very thorough introduction.
I hope you're doing good, Ms. Charlene.
I'm good, and I hope yourself as well.
I'm good. All right. Ms. Charlene, perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about ABC and what it actually does.
Okay. So ABC, firstly, thank you for the opportunity that we've had to work with Malaysia Airports to realize this dream of the butterfly effect. It's amazing how, as an Asian country and, in a sense, as a third world country, which we are now a developing country, that we've moved along and done so much for the community ahead of the times. And this is one of it as well. So thank you for that opportunity. So how ABC played a role, as you've mentioned, is primarily supporting and training the community at KLIA. But what we do on a day-to-day basis is basically we provide intervention, primarily early intervention for children with autism, behavioral challenges, social challenges, that cover also speech delays, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, GDD, global developmental disorders, sensory processing disorders. So basically any child or individual that are displaying developmental delays in the areas of language, social skills, behavior, and communication, we can assist with. So what we do is basically we do the therapy part. We generally work very closely with doctors, generally developmental pediatricians. They would do the diagnosis part to identify whether or not a child is on the spectrum or they have another diagnosis. And then they would refer them to us where we would do the intensive intervention. So the science of teaching that we use is called ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. It is the gold standard in autism treatment. However, it's been proven to be very effective for generally anyone displaying developmental delays in general.
I see. Ms. Charlene, you yourself have been involved with special needs for children for quite some time now. Could you share with us what is your motivation and drive to take up these very noble responsibilities?
Well, yeah, it's been a few years right now. It doesn't feel that long, honestly. But initially, I had the opportunity to be a therapist myself. I was a therapist for actually about 7 to 8 years. And what drives me every day till this day, though I don't really physically work with kids anymore because I'm more on the operations side, is the children themselves. We've had many families and we still are in contact with many families that we work with them, from the years that have passed and seeing the children develop and now they're going to school and they have friends, and they're going to swim competitions, and all of this is the development of the children that really drives me as a person. To see them generally, I would say, Ariana, most of the children that start with us tend to be between the ages of 2 to 3. The general profile that we tend to see is they're usually non-verbal, they cannot communicate verbally, they can't request, they cannot label things, and a back and forth communication at that point of time is almost very challenging, almost impossible at that point of time. But through intervention, many of these children come out of that and they're communicative, they go into mainstream schools. So to see that development and realize all of these dreams of the families, and to see them coping in a mainstream school with everybody else, is incredibly fulfilling. So I would say that's what drives me every day.
That is truly inspiring, Ms. Charlene. I think the nation owes you a big thank you for your efforts in putting others as a priority. I wish our audience could share this out later as we continue to inspire more to join this cause. Now, moving on, Ms. Charlene, traveling is always an eye-opening experience for many of us. I think I myself personally, I feel the same way every time I travel. However, during the travel phase, it is already stressful and challenging, especially during these difficult times where everything needs to be put into consideration, including the new traveling rules and procedures, as well as entry requirements into a country, especially with COVID now. I would imagine this would be a bit more challenging than usual for parents and guardians traveling with children with hidden disabilities. Could you share with us some of the biggest challenges and obstacles when traveling with children with disabilities?
Okay, that's a really good question. So from speaking to our families, I mean, we've been very blessed, honestly, in the last couple of years to work with amazing families who are so hands-on that, they are able to cope with their children so well, even in a social environment like the airport. But again, we are supporting with a community of people here, and some has had the opportunity to access intervention and support, and some may not. So that means we're dealing with a wide variety of individuals, some with more skills than others. So I would say generally, if I were to kind of pinpoint it, what generally is a struggle for families that are going to the airport is for those especially that cannot communicate effectively. And if they cannot communicate what they want, I think what sometimes families fear is the possible occurrence of a behavior. So this could be a meltdown where, you could provide the child any form of toy or food or activity and nothing works. And sometimes it can be very, daunting for passers-by to watch, and it's very challenging for the family to deal with because there's really nothing much you can do at that point of time. So ideally, from an interventionist point of view, we put in place all of these preventive measures to ensure that doesn't happen. But I would say the back of the parent's mind generally is, what if my child has a full-blown meltdown in the airport and he's rolling and he's screaming and he's potentially kicking or hurting other people or himself? How do I manage something like that? Because managing behaviors like that in the comfort of your own home is hard enough, and now needing to do it where in public where everybody is scrutinizing whether we like it or not can be very, very daunting. So meltdowns and behaviors, or children that specifically with children on the spectrum, they can be very rigid sometimes. They're very insistent. If that's what they want, if that's what they want to do, or that's the way they want to go, that's what you need to do sometimes. And needing to teach that flexibility and deal with these behaviors, again, I think in the public eye can be very challenging for families. So I would say the potential possible behavior happening in a public space, I think that's what potentially families can be really concerned about.
Indeed, Ms. Charlene, especially, sometimes people can get very intimidated by the meltdowns that these children have. But I think we would like to know, could you share with us how we can actually manage and prepare children with hidden disabilities for their flight?
Okay. Great question, Ariana. And I think that's what we're focusing on here today. So most of these strategies and suggestions is what we call preventive strategies. So this is what we would put in place to ensure behaviors or difficult situations do not arise. So, and then what we call when something has happened, that's like a reactive strategy. But ideally, the best way to go about it is to prevent everything from happening so that you have a successful and smooth journey to the destination of your choice. So I would say to start off, I'm going to chime in with the initiative that we have here. The first thing, if you are traveling with an individual or a child with a hidden disability, is to register with the Butterfly Effect Initiative. As the video showed us earlier, there's a lot of accommodations made for individuals and families that are traveling with someone with a hidden disability. And that's the tricky part if you don't register, because hidden disabilities, as the name suggests, it's something that we do not see with the naked eye. So the child or the adult looks just like you and I. He doesn't look like he needs help. He needs help, or she needs help, but they need help. So I would say the first thing is to register these accommodations, and this support is made available in KLIA 1 and 2. And as the video suggests, please register 3 days prior, and you will have access to the calm rooms, which can be very, very helpful for any individuals that is easily overstimulated by a busy environment like the airport. So the calm room, as the name suggests, again, it's very calming. There's very little distractions. It's a little bit closed off to the rest of the airport. And honestly, for families that may be struggling with any form of behaviors or any challenges with a family member or a child with a hidden disability, the calm room also gives you a sense of privacy because it is away from everybody else. And most importantly, when you register in the Butterfly Effect Initiative, you're given that lanyard. It's a visual representation that you are an individual or you are a family that has additional needs. And the ground staff at Malaysia airports is ever ready to support you, and they have received the training. They have learned to identify these hidden disabilities, and they have been trained on how to best manage families and individuals with these needs. So I would say step number one, to make it most successful for your family or as an individual with hidden disabilities traveling, please register. And you have all of these accommodations to make it a smoother journey. So I would say start off, with best case scenario, you set yourself up for success, register. Now, is it okay if I move on, Ariana?
Yes, sure, please.
Yeah, perfect. So I have a couple of tips here, but it's not an exhaustive list. So there are definitely more ideas. But as I mentioned, most of the suggestions here are all preventative. So we try to ensure this is in place before we have, certain outcomes in a public area like the airport that we don't want to happen. Now, very much so, I would say some of the suggestions that I'm giving here, it's very much so like when you are traveling with a very young child. So even traveling with very young children, and I'm sure many people in the audience here, families in the audience, have young children, there's a lot of thought, planning, and thinking that goes into the trip, including when's the best time to travel. So for example, if I am an individual that is easily stimulated, overstimulated with sound and lights, for example. So with the amount of announcements going on and the amount of people going up and down and, the lights coming through the windows and all of this just stimulate me, it would probably best to travel during the evenings or the nights, And for some families, they want to ensure that their child's sleep routine doesn't get disrupted. So, you would travel during a certain time. So once you're done with the whole check-in and boarding process, your child is just nice to wrap up in a blanket and sleep. So it's very much so, the planning would be, I would say, kind of parallel to what you would do with a younger child. But again, because hidden disabilities, there are many needs that we need to additionally look into, So for example, though I spoke about some individuals being very sensitive to light and sound, but we may have individuals that find this very stimulating, and they like it. like seeing a lot of movement, a lot of light makes them so happy. So on the other hand, you may then want to travel where you have opportunities to see and hear these things. So it's a very interesting thing about hidden disabilities, because hidden disabilities is it's an umbrella term of any disability that we cannot see. So depending on the needs of the individual that you're working with, you may need to then adjust your traveling time to what suits best to that individual and your family. So that would be the second tip. Yeah. Usually, I tend to note that for many of our families that travel, they tend to travel a little bit during the non-peak hours, so that it's less busy. They get more time to move from one checkpoint to another checkpoint. And also, if they need more support from the ground staff, there are more hands, simply because it's not so busy, and they can take their time moving through the checkpoint. So generally, that's what I notice our families tend to do. Now, a lot of these suggestions or tips, it's something that honestly I would do myself to make sure my travel is seamless. And one of it, the next suggestion would be to check in online, because when you do that, you just get to drop off your baggage and go. Now, the reason why, maybe for some listeners, viewers listening today, you may not be able to see the correlation between that. But oftentimes, if you're traveling with very young individuals or a group of people that are young and individuals with needs, you will be very quick to realize that standing around and waiting in long lines can be very difficult. So you want things done as quickly as possible so that you can keep going and move towards, your destination, which is the waiting area before boarding a flight. So I would say definitely check in, try to think ahead of how, again, you can make your process of boarding the plane, and that it doesn't end there for families, unfortunately. Even boarding the plane and in your flight, that can be actually the major challenge for most of our families as well. So this is something to consider. So to please check in, so that you just drop off your luggage, you keep going. And generally, when children are occupied, they tend to do better. So when you're stagnant, there's nothing much going on, it can be quite difficult, because particularly, so for example, with children or individuals that want certain things and they see it right there, maybe in the little shop, and they may start to request either verbally or by pulling your hand through, it can be very distracting when you're trying to, for example, check it. So I'm thinking of simple ways that it doesn't really require a lot of clinical knowledge, but simple ways how you can make your journey through the airport more seamless. Now, my next suggestion, this is not a tough one, but it requires some effort. Now, many individuals with needs, especially when there is a lack of understanding of what's happening around them, and generally a lack of awareness and delays in language, you will see that the connection between what they see and what they're doing and what we're doing and why we're doing it may not connect seamlessly because of the language barriers and the lack of awareness. So what I would recommend to families that are particularly, in the past, if they've really, really struggled to visit an airport and in general, or even go through the routines in the airport, is to basically visit an airport for many reasons. So for some individuals that have needs, one of the challenges that we see is, and this is again on the spectrum, we see them a lot, children and individuals with autism. Many children and individuals with autism tend to struggle with visiting new places. And honestly, the pandemic didn't help us at all, because all we saw was our home. So, of late, especially now coming out of the pandemic, as we move into an endemic, and now sectors are opening up, children are now getting the opportunities to go different places. And generally, the first couple of visits can be very challenging, especially, again, because on the spectrum, we have, a behavior or criteria called rigidity. So they're pretty rigid. They like things being kept the same places, the same people, the same food. There's like a routine that goes on. And anything out of the routine sometimes, not always, can be difficult. So by visiting an airport, the families actually can work on a couple of things together. Number one is not only for your child or individual with needs, is even for yourself, familiarizing yourself with everything in the airport, where you need to go, where you need to be, where are the toilets, where are the check-in counters, where do you head to an immigration. So again, I think some of us have been blessed to travel a lot, so probably that comes more naturally to some of us. But imagine if if you're traveling with a child with needs, and a child with severe or a lot of needs, traveling can be very challenging, and this is not something you would do very often. Probably you do it once or twice a year to visit your family, for example. So number one, kind of getting used to what to expect in the airport for both your child and yourself will be very helpful. Additionally, in the airport, and this is why we have the calm room and this is why we have the sensory walls, is because in general, in the airport, there's lots and lots of stimulation. So stimulation from different senses, it could be the different lights, the sounds, the smells coming from all of the different restaurants. So for some individuals, it can be very overwhelming. And for some individuals, they're gonna love it. They're like, wow, this is the best thing ever. So again, it's such a wide range of needs that we are supporting here. So as you have the opportunities to do one or two visits to the airport, as a family or as a parent, number one, you expose your child to this environment. And if you see a certain behavior happening, you know what to anticipate already. So, for example, if you were to pass, I don't know, a sort of little mart in the airport, and if your child would insist to have a certain toy, every time they pass this mart, you may now know that maybe when you finally get to go to the airport, you don't go that route, for example. So this is preventative measures, because not having or maybe not having what they want will cause a huge behavior. But if you have what they want, of course, it's not a problem, lah. Yeah, so I would say visiting an airport prepares all parties, but again, because the airport being where it is, it requires a lot of effort. But some individuals will not need it because they love coming to new environments. They're very excited about new environments, and they're flexible and they're open to changes. But on the other hand, we are also dealing with a huge population of people with hidden disabilities that like structure, they like routines, they don't like changes. They need to be well prepared for a trip or a change of routine. So really, depending on the individual that you're supporting, you will need to kind of pick and choose which kind of support that you will need to put in place to ensure that your trip is successful. Okay, so I think that was my fourth point. And at any point, Ariana, if you want to jump in, you can. I feel like I'm talking so much right now. So visiting an airport would be a good thing to do if you have access to. Now, one of the big topics actually we spoke about during the training for Malaysia airports, everybody in the ground, including the immigration and basically all of these governmental officers, is basically the immigration process. Because like for you and I, usually we get a pat down. Yeah, and that was kind of like a norm lah. Okay, you already know it's going to be happening. It's 3 seconds of your life. It's very quick. Nobody really likes being touched, but it is just part of the process to ensure all of the passengers are safe. Now, but when we are working with individuals with hidden disabilities, there are many factors that we need to think about here. So many individuals, especially depending on the severity, yeah. So generally, hidden disabilities oftentimes also includes developmental disabilities that affect language and understanding. So, if you say something like "take off your shoes and walk through the scanner and put your arms out," all of these instructions will probably be way too overwhelming. For some of the individuals that we work with, they can take the instructions. They are at that level, but not all are. Some can imitate you. But more importantly, I think with the immigration process is the part of somebody coming to your face and patting you down. So this can be very tricky. So this is what I recommend to families. that are traveling with somebody that may not tolerate the pat down process very well is to practice. Practice makes perfect. So this is in when we look at theoretical concepts, this is what we call desensitization. So if you do it often enough and you pair it with something positive coming after that, it doesn't become an aversive experience anymore. So what we have done in the past for some of the children that we know are going to be traveling, we would generally even, and also they have some understanding of language. I probably wouldn't do this very much if they don't have much understanding of language, because I'm not sure how much they will understand. But we kind of do a little of a role play of, now, you're going through the immigration. Okay, put your hands out or do this, and then now, okay, I'm going to pat you down. Okay, then we count it through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then done. And then we would reinforce. And then we do that several times. And we're doing it in a home setting, and you say, okay, let's practice. And we practice, and then we would reinforce. So basically, sometimes these are the things that we might need to consider, depending on what is most challenging during your trip. Some individuals may not have any issues with immigration process. Some of them is in the flight, actually being seated and putting the seatbelts on. That can be very tricky as well. But basically, in summary, what I would recommend, if you've done this before, you've gone on a flight before, and you know your child will struggle in certain points, I would say to practice. And with ABA, we love reinforcement. So ABA is the science that we use to teach children. Everything is about reinforcement. And if we can reinforce certain behaviors, they're more likely to happen again. So what this means is, every time you allow me to pat you down and you tolerate me touching you for just that 5 pats, you get something that you want, you prefer. So now in long term, that doesn't become like a aversive experience. It becomes something they look forward to. Yeah, but again, this takes practice, because behaviors are learned after several times. It's usually not learned after 1 or 2, unless it's very aversive, So practice. So whatever it could be. So for example, one of our children that, again, same thing, was quite young, I think 2.5 or 3. The family told us that they were going back to their home country, but this child cannot sit on anything with a seatbelt, including his own car seat. His baby seat in the car, he couldn't sit, and this is what the family continuously struggle with. So what we did was we did a tolerance, and this is what families, it's not easy to do, but basically the idea here, if I were to break it down to all of our listeners and viewers here, is to basically practice, disperse it in short amounts of time. So initially, we would give the instructions, sit down, we will buckle a child up, literally 2 or 3 seconds, we let them go. And like, yay, you did it! And then you will reinforce with something preferred. And you would do it a couple more times, and over time, you would extend the period of time that they're required to sit. So basically here, we're setting up the child for success, because oftentimes, for some children, luckily, some children never had an issue sitting in the baby seat. Some really do, even our neurotypical children. Some just do not like sitting in the car seat. And oftentimes, we do it long enough to start them crying already, like we need to go to the shop, we need to buckle them down. So 15-minute drive, they cry, and sometimes there's a tolerance building as well. But sometimes we may need to teach our children and individuals that we're supporting with needs slightly differently. So again, so it's hard for me to give you the clinical setting of how we can teach this, but in essence, it's just about practice. And with every success, you want to reinforce that, even the smallest, because you want to make it a positive experience. So it's hard sometimes, but it can be done. All right, so the immigration process is one, but you can do it for any process that you think potentially your child is going to struggle in. Now,
and I think with the pandemic happening, I think most parents or guardians today will have to give an extra practice, because it's been a while since we've been on a plane or even actually stepped into the airport. So I think a lot of parents are going to start practicing with their children, and I think they would be very excited that we have this facility at the airport. So I think we can look forward to many more travels, and I hope that, with this facility, it can actually help um, many of our passengers and our hidden disability guests, have a seamless and a pleasant journey at the airport. What do you think, Ms. Charlene?
I 100% agree. So this is something that we spoke about in general. We speak a lot about this. Again, coming from an Asian community and Malaysia, honestly, we're pretty progressive. We talk about a lot of these things. Look at us doing a public forum on this, but there are many countries that do not talk about these things. And as a result, a lot of individuals go without support or diagnosis. But what I love about this is not only are we supporting individuals that need the help, but we are now more inclusive to any individual with hidden disabilities. And because of that, families and individuals with needs will feel more included and they will come out more often. So, what generally happens is when there is no form of support, you don't see individuals with needs coming out because really this is just too much. There is no form of support. There is no place I can go to wait. Nobody understands my child's condition. It's just such a nightmare. So I love how programs like this are rolled out because it includes society in general. Regardless of what challenges you have, and this is a challenge that I would say can be very tricky because, as I've mentioned, the individual looks physically perfect, normal, but they have these additional challenges, be it sensory, language, behavior, social skills. So it's amazing how everybody's been trained to identify and support these families. So hopefully, through this initiative, we hopefully hope to see more families come out and brave it out, to take that flight which you've been meaning to take for years, but you never have, because you have never had this amount of support. But now there's this amazing ground team who is trained and able to do that. So it will be great to see more families come out, and and now as borders hopefully reopen soon, I hope that families are able to reconnect, and you got to take that flight. So at least now it gets more seamless, you get more support. Individuals have been trained, ground staff, they're more empathetic, they understand, they've been trained, they know what to look out for, so there's so much of education and a lot of effort that's been put in by all parties to make this happen. So I think the end goal for all of this is, as you've mentioned, in an inclusive environment for anybody. And hopefully we're going to see more families with traveling with individuals with needs come out to enjoy the facilities as well.
Those are actually wonderful tips, Ms. Charlene, and thank you for sharing them with us. I hope these tips will help parents and guardians out there with their traveling experience, and hopefully they have a joyful one. I believe that, as you mentioned, Ms. Charlene, the awareness and support that the country is actually having at the moment for hidden disability guests is increasing by the day, and I see that a lot of people are more aware about this, and we hope that we continue to support those with hidden disabilities. To facilitate this further, KL International Airport has also set up various facilities to ease travelling journey for families with special needs such as children. So you can find these facilities and services such as the calm room, as mentioned by Ms. Charlene, sensory walls, and even priority access through checkpoints. So parents and guardians out there, do visit Malaysia Airport's official website at www.malaysiaairports.com.my for more information on the butterfly effect. So, Ms. Charlene, I'm sure we had today, we will go a long way in creating a joyful and pleasant journey for our guests. I believe there are some questions from our viewers today, so let us have a look. So our first question is Ms. Alisa Zakaria. She says, my child always acts out whenever there is a crowd. I am now afraid to bring her out, and that also means I have not been able to travel. What can we do?
Okay. Thank you, Miss Alyssa. Now, this is such a relatable question. I think many families are really glad you asked this question. Now, leading up to a big event like traveling in through an airport and where there's a very big crowd that you cannot control, I would say to break down the expectations and the skills. So what that means is before you lead up to visiting an airport, you might want to do small trips around your neighborhood when you are traveling and kind of socializing in a group setting. So start off with two or three people coming over, family members, and then you slowly increase that. Then you visit places that are a little bit more busier, like supermarkets, and then lead your way up to an airport or even an airplane for that matter, because it's a very compact place with lots and lots of people. So again, this is a little bit for when we look at the science, we're breaking down the skills. So what is your end goal? So Miss Alyssa, your end goal is you want to bring a child out, to a crowd, and you can't, get out of a crowd because we tend to travel in groups anyway, So you may want to start with just exposing your child to being around other people. Start small, just another additional child, and then 2 people, and then 3 people. So you can start first in the comfort of your own home, have your neighbors or your family over. I know now it's a little bit difficult also with COVID, but whenever you can, if you have a big family, amazing. And then you start then relocating that to the park, somewhere a little bit more open. So when your child feels a little bit overwhelmed for whatever reason with the crowd, he still has his space to step back, and then you migrate to busy areas that you need to stay close to your child, like a supermarket, because he can't be wandering off on his own, and then finally move up to bigger locations like airports and the airplane. So I would say slowly build the tolerance up. So the tolerance of being around other people. So this is actually something that we've actually worked on before, but it's about breaking down the skills, start small, and slowly these goals get bigger, closer towards your end goal. So, if he's really afraid of going to the airport or airplanes, I wouldn't immediately jump to that end goal because that's setting him up for failure. He probably can't cope. So you start small. So that also means you have to start way ahead. If you're traveling in the end of the year, you might already want to look into it. Mid-year, start going for little play groups, play dates, birthday parties. Now that we can, go to malls and parks. And so basically just get out there, start accessing group activities to desensitize. So the goal here is not to socialize, but the group is to be comfortable being around a crowd. Means, quite a compact amount of people in a small space. So this is something that we can work up to. And again, coming back to ABA, every time your child makes it, even if he tolerates one person next to him, reinforce. Make it a big deal. Whatever your child enjoys, it could be praise, hugs and kisses, or tickles, or ice cream, or stickers. You want to make it a big deal because you do want to pair these tolerance programs, which is very difficult actually for many individuals with sensory needs. And you want to pair it with something that they really enjoy so that they understand, hey, there's always like a rainbow at the end of this life, Like if I put up with this, if I tolerate this, it's really not that bad. I get all of the good things at the end of the day. So we kind of just want to shift that focus. So it's just about practice as well, breaking down the skills and building up to your end goal.
Thank you, Ms. Charlene. Our next question will be from Mr. Jufri. So he asks, what can we do if someone with a hidden disability starts acting up or is affected by the closed environment of an airplane? I'm actually quite interested to hear from you, Ms. Charlene.
Yeah, this is such a great question, honestly. There's been some attention in the media about this as well. There was a story actually I read many years ago about a mother traveling with a child with autism, I think, and she packed this little care packages and basically explaining, hey, my son is on the spectrum. He may sing out loud throughout this flight. So she packed them a little note explaining, the child's condition, and she packed them ear plugs as well. So that's going above and beyond. But now, as a passerby or third party, so you're not part of this family, if you see someone acting up, and it's in a closed environment, so it could be a waiting area or even more challenging in a plane, I would say the number one thing to always do when you are not part of that group, so you're a third party watching, is to always um, be compassionate. Don't be too quick to judge, because honestly, if it's difficult for you to watch it, it's even harder on the family to have to deal with this, because again, with hidden disability, oftentimes we're looking at challenges with communication. And probably this child has no way to tell daddy and mommy that my ears are hurting because of the pressure change. How do you express that? Same like children, that's why they cry, usually on takeoff and landings, so very similar. So I would say to always, if you were to glance, I would say try not to stare unless you want to help, because having, 100 pairs of eyes on you is really not easy as a family. Be compassionate. Secondly, you can, if you are within arm's length, maybe you're sitting behind this passenger or next to them or in front of them, you can always turn around and say, hey, do you need any help? Can I help you? And when I mean these questions, I would direct it to the guardian or the carer. So because oftentimes as well, for not all, but many individuals with hidden disabilities, again, it affects language. So you may ask these questions, but they may not have the ability to answer. Yeah, so we also don't want to make you feel defeated. Like, I tried, but nothing happened. So you might want to reach out to the carers or the guardians of the family. So always reach out with a supporting hand. Try not to judge. Always be compassionate and try to help. And if you can't help, honestly, I would say just redirect yourself back and focus on sleeping or reading a book, because it's either you help. I generally, I would say help, or really you have to get out of the way, because it really doesn't help the family if everybody's just staring. And sometimes we don't control our facial expression. We're all like judging, but it's so hard on the families. Honestly, like I said, if it's hard for us to listen to this child scream, it's harder on the family, because they are inside them. They're just praying, please just stop. So it's hard for these families. So I would say compassion, act with kindness, ask them if they need help. And oftentimes, I can tell you, there is not much you can do, for these
it can
families, there
also
really
be
isn't much.
overwhelming for the parents also, being in a very enclosed area, there's no left, there's no right, you can only go for as long as the plane, is, how big the plane is, that's all. There's only the amount of space. So yeah, I think having compassion for the guests would mean a lot, especially for the guardians, I believe so. For the next question is that, can I know whether airline staff, steward or stewardess, can handle and manage the hidden disability children in the flight? And has Malaysia Airports share all the requirements and knowledge to the airlines? So I believe that would be for Malaysia Airports to answer. So Malaysia Airports, in collaboration with ABC, actually, have provided training to our airport community in KLIA and KLIA2, including government agencies such as the Immigration Department, the Royal Malaysian Customs, airline, ground handlers, retailers, and even our own staff. So we aim to actually continue this training to ensure that we are always up to date with the procedures and in handling our guests with hidden disabilities. I hope that answers Ms. Felicia's question. I think that is about it. And we have a comment from, I believe, Mr. Dandai Tapani. He says, fantastic. It can be a bit challenging for parents, but I think these tips are going to be effective. I
Thank
hope
you very much.
with our session today, you can have many parents and guardians out there, navigate their way when traveling, especially now. I think everyone's excited to travel, I think that is all for today. So before we end our session for today, perhaps Ms. Charlene, you can say a few words to our audience and how they can reach out to you or your team to get more information about ABC.
Thank you, Ariana. So firstly, thank you for this opportunity. Now, honestly, time was so limited. I have like so many more tips. So if anybody has any additional questions and would like to reach out to us, you can do so via our website, www.abcautism.com.my. Alternatively, you can connect with us directly via WhatsApp. So that will be +6012 2852 007. And generally, you directly reach me. So, if you have any questions just generally about how we can help, if your child needs support, if you're seeing delays in development that potentially we can help, you can reach out to us. If you have any general questions or any further inquiries based on, any other tips you need, to make your trip through the airport as successful as possible, I'm also happy to help. So hopefully, as I've mentioned, you can reach us via WhatsApp or our website, www.abcautism.com.my.
Thank you, Ms. Charlene. I would like to also encourage parents and guardians out there who have an upcoming travel to use this facility provided by Malaysia Airports. Please do visit our website at www.malaysiaairports.com.my, and all the information is there for you and your upcoming travels. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is all the time we have for today. It has been a very informative day for us, and this knowledge and insight let us together create a more caring and inclusive society. If anyone has any further questions, please feel free to visit our Facebook page and leave us a comment so we can get back to you with an answer. Thank you for joining us today, Ms. Charlene. Please stay safe.
Thank you.
We highly appreciate your sharing and hope to see you soon. For all our audience out there, until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and be responsible social butterfly and adhere to all safety measures. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.